Matt Fiddes is one of the most respected fitness and martial arts experts in the world. Having been established for 20 years, Matt Fiddes has built a global fitness empire with over 700 schools across the world. Known to many groups of people from the world of martial arts, the world of franchising, and of course his friendship with Michael Jackson, in a way, all three of these worlds are connected. Hello and welcome to Talk Business with Matt.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Thank you so much. So you've got to take us back to the beginning. When did you first become interested in martial arts and how did you get good at it?
Well, I had a bully at school, who obviously now is my best mate. Oddly enough, we met on This Morning. They wanted us to meet for the first time after 32 years, live on TV with Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby on the UK programme This Morning on ITV.
Oh, yeah.
And we met on TV, and people watched on YouTube. And I thanked him when he came out. They kept us in separate green rooms. I thanked him for what he did because he bullied me at school, not severely. When you look back, it's more verbal, kicking under the table, stealing my milk. But when you're 6, 7 years old, it does have kick your confidence in. He was a big guy, you know, compared to me. I was like a little tiny, short, skinny kid back then. And I was worried I was going to get hurt, to be honest, Dave. So there's this lad next to me who sat next to me at the school desk, was doing martial arts, and he said, "Come and do martial arts, try and learn how to defend yourself." So I thought, wow, I'll give it a whirl. And that's exactly what I did. I went on to my first martial arts class, and I wasn't doing very well at school. It wasn't for me. I even knew back then I couldn't my right, or I'd come out publicly, but now I can't write. I mean, it looks like hieroglyphics or something. The school assumed I was right-handed, and it wasn't until I was about 12 years old they realised I was left-handed, and they tried to correct it, but by that point it was too late, really. So I can write and make it out myself, but you won't have a clue what it's about. But I've never had to write, so it's not a problem. I've only had to sign autographs, my signature, and I can type perfectly fine. I can read and stuff, so it's no issue. But I just knew from a young age that's all I wanted to do was martial arts. I mean, it's something I was good at. I was getting praise from my instructor, not being told off by the school teacher, and I just didn't see the point in learning lots of stuff I was getting taught at school. There's nothing I can put my finger on I was taught in school that's helped me become successful in any way whatsoever, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So starting martial arts for me was it was my passion that I turned into my business.
Yeah. And of course, you're of the age, you was probably starting off going and learning karate stuff when Karate Kid first come out. So you must have been doing loads of those crane kicks that was famous in the show, right?
Yeah. So I'm 41. So I think, kind of what Karate Kid is. I've been watching the Cobra Kai thing lately. That's been quite funny, interesting. Yeah, I watched all the Karate Kid films, but obviously the people that influence us martial artists are people like Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
I like Jean-Claude Van Damme, and it was odd because I never knew back then I would get to know Jean-Claude Van Damme in any shape or form. We got the same agent actually in Australia, and I used to love the fact he could do the splits and all those flashy kicks, and that's what I went on to do. As you can see here in the background, is I like doing the kicks. I mean, I've got these long legs, so they're a good use of them to do the spinning kicks. Although it's a bit more difficult now. Now I'm 41, my head still wants to do these kicks, but my legs won't let me like they used to. I can still do it for the old magazine cover every now and then, so it's not too bad a thing. But yeah, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Bruce Lee, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Even my grandfather was a big influence on me. He was 7 times Olympic weightlifting champion of Ireland and picked for the Olympics for the 1960 Olympics in Rome. So he was really pushing me on the bodybuilding and weight training side of things. It gave us a great education at such a young age. He trained me personally there. So I've always been surrounded by this incredible inner circle of people. And even though you fail at school, it just shows you can go on and do well. And most entrepreneurs you'll find have had pain in their childhood that's led them to go on to be successful and have no qualifications or very, very minimal. So the only thing I left school with is a black belt. And I'm not proud of that. I did try my best, but I didn't see the point of answering a question in my mathematics class. How many different ways can you put 50p into a phone box? Stupid. I didn't see any issue. How can you take 30 kids and educate them all the same way when they're all different? You know, it's daft. So I think the school system needs a big shake-up, really. And
Yeah.
All my education comes from self-educated and my network who I hanged out with, which are kind of unusual, which I'm sure we get onto later.
Yeah, for sure. So when did you first realise that you could make money from your martial arts? And what are some of the key milestones that has gotten you to where you are today, having the world's most successful martial arts franchise?
I never focused on the money. I had these goals though when I was 12 years old. So the little exercise books you have in school, in secondary school. So you have one for maths and one for English. I was in a maths class and I was totally switched off. And I went to the back page and we still got it to this day. And I wrote down a series of goals. Some of them are ridiculous. Like only martial artists understand it. I want to be able to do the side splits on the chairs, like Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I want to be able to kick the ceiling. I want to have big muscles. And then I had some other goals there too. Like I want to be the most successful martial arts instructor by the time I'm 20. I want a Ferrari and all these type of things. And that was my thing that I ruled by. So every time I finished school, straight down the gym, do my weight training, then straight to my martial arts class after. And so I knew then that I wanted to do it as a career. I didn't know how the hell I was going to make any money out of it. There were people doing it for a living, but not a good living. And it was like cash at the end of the session in an ice cream box type thing, and then take it to the bank and like £2.50, £3 a session. And then what happened then? I left school at 16. I found I was a bit too young to open up my business. So I took a course to be a personal trainer at the local college in Swindon in the UK. And then while I was doing that, I had a job as a personal trainer, teaching women how to lose weight, men how to gain muscle and lose weight. And that gave me like the teaching experience. And then what happened then is the gym shut down and I was forced then to do something. So I didn't want to open up on top of my instructor's territory, but a bit disrespectful. So I moved away to North Devon to a town called Barnstable, which has got like 30,000 people in. It's on the north coast of Devon. And I still felt I was too young. So I got a job as a lifeguard at the local leisure centre for £2.75 an hour. At school, I qualified as a lifeguard. It's not a qualification I did have put to use. And that was quite good for me because while I was doing that, I was looking at the water, obviously, to see if anyone was drowning, but it's very rare. Sometimes the pool's empty. You start seeing fish after a while doing that job.
Yeah.
I was thinking, how can I get this to work? You know, I can't be staring at water for the rest of my life. And I was my parents weren't supportive at all about what I did. Not in the early stages. Then my dad wanted me to get a trade, be an electrician or a plumber, which is fair enough because that's the way they were educated. You know, my grandfather was real tough on me. He only passed away in November. He's in 97. He took me in his shed where he's working on stuff. He said, you guys stop kicking your legs around, Matthew. You need to get a job, get a trade, you know, electrician, plumber. You're not going to make any money out of that. He apologized a few years later when I turned up in my Ferrari and took him out for a drive. He just couldn't believe it. He became my biggest fan. But my parents stopped speaking to me. I mean, they just didn't speak to me when I moved to Devon and decided I want to set up a martial arts school. I don't want to go to university. I've got no GCSEs. I got no qualifications that's going to help me get into university. I don't want to restudy. I want to teach martial arts. And then what it took to me to take action on it is I was living in a bedsit, basically, where you have the sofa there and the little tiniest bathroom, the tiniest little kitchen. And then at night you turn the sofa into a bed and back again. And it was so humiliating, you know, me and my girlfriend at the time. I think the rent was £30 a week and we were struggling to afford that. And I remember the Christmas we had no money at all because when you're a lifeguard in Devon, it's kind of like a touristy type thing. And the work would scale off. And even like my auntie, she sent me a food hamper for food as a Christmas present because she knew I was struggling in what my career path. My brothers are different. One of them is very academic. He's a school teacher, college teacher. He's done very well. I think he was in university till he's 29. So they're all very academic. My other brother, Josh, he's academic, very, very smart people. And so I was like the black sheep of the family, really. But the bedsit thing, my girlfriend, what she got me for Christmas was a briefcase and she handed it to me. So, right, now you've got to stop messing around and get on with these classes. You're going to keep waiting to be older and older. You're never going to happen. So I kept on putting it off. Yeah. I did funny things too, Dave. I grew a ponytail because I read somewhere, if you got long hair, you look older. And I think there is some truth to that with men. So I grew this ponytail to look like I was a bit older as well. And I set my first school up, and it just, the first one didn't work out because, and I promoted it so hard. My uncle helped me out with a poster. He was supportive of trying to help me out. He had design expertise. I put the posters everywhere. I had lots of people booked in, and it was a Sunday morning, and I get to the class and no one turned up. And I was gutted. And I go back to my girlfriend and no one turned up. Well, how am I going to, my mum and dad are going to say we were right. Everyone's going to laugh at me, my school bullies and stuff. And my careers advisor, when I worked at school, secondary school, when you're in the big hall and they got all these stands, you walk around, the careers advisor said to me, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a martial arts instructor. And she said, there's no such thing. Don't be ridiculous. Go over there and look at being a personal trainer or something like that. And I went back to her a couple of years later in the Ferrari too. She came out and said sorry and gave me a hug and so on. But yeah, it was, anyway, on that Sunday, I got back, turned the TV on, Princess Diana died. Hence why no one turned up. The whole world was in complete shock. And so I kind of justified that's why no one turned up. So I started again a week later. I had about 100 people turn up, £3 a session. I was in business and I was loving it. And that, along with the lifeguarding job, I had a bit of an income. And I had a friend who come back from America, and he said, Matt, you wouldn't believe what's going on in America. You've got multi-millionaire martial arts school owners. And I said, that's all very well, but I don't want to compromise my standards for money. That's the way we think in martial arts. We want to keep the perfectionists. And it's now you don't understand. These guys have got the standards and they got the money, and they're better than all of us. So I saved up enough money to get a flight to San Francisco to this martial arts business convention. There's about 1,000 people there. Half the room, they would have been millionaires. I mean, they were just incredible. And one of the most successful ones was so inspired by this 17-year-old who saved up the money and got out there. I approached him and asked him questions. And he's like, the Americans are different to the UK. They pat you on the back and try and encourage you. Over here, if you're successful, they try and stab you, and, they don't like it so much, especially when it comes to earning money. And this guy said to me, listen, how long are you here for? Follow me around the whole time you're here and take notes, go and visit my schools, take back the details and try and implement my systems. And he had scripts for everything, like answering the phone and lesson plans. It was like a whole level different. Things I've never seen before, like music on in the lessons was a big no-no for martial arts, if you go to a gym, it's kind of odd trying to train in a gym with no music on, whereas because the energy isn't there. So I came back after this guy took me under his wing with all these notes and things, and I implemented it. I was the first guy in the UK to put martial arts membership onto a direct debit, as we now know it. It was then called a standing order. We still have standing orders now, don't we? But it's direct debit's the common one. It's onto a monthly system that stabilised my income. Then I implemented all these systems. I made it educational, life skills. I taught all the things that kids don't learn at school, like goal setting and self-discipline, respect, good manners, water safety, fire safety. My students got sent homework they had to fill out. If it didn't get signed by their school teacher that they're being well behaved, or by their parent, then they can't go for the next colour grade because we're all trying to work towards black belt. And I had over 100 people paying me, like on average, like I think a family membership on average is about £69 a month. So I was doing like £7,000 a month at the time, plus all the other income streams linked to it, like joining fees and merchandise and exam fees. So I was teaching twice a week and making close to 10,000 a month. Yeah. The rest of the time I just trained and sat on the beach because we live near the beach down here, and that was that. But then I got bored with that, and I thought, I wonder if I can do this again. And so I wanted to have the big location, but I was still 17 years old. So I found this perfect location in Barnstable. So the first school I did was in a village of 10,000 people. It shouldn't even be possible, but it worked really well. And the second one was the big town, Barnstable. So I travelled there and met this landlord. And lucky for me, he was an estate agent. And my mum was a conveyancing lawyer. So she's used to working for estate agents, knew him personally. But obviously, when I told him what I wanted to do, on hide this huge building above his estate agency, he thought I was crazy. How are you going to make money out of karate? How are you going to pay the rent? But I think there's been a to and fro between my mum and him saying, just give my son a chance. I think he's onto something here. So the guy gave me 6 months rent. on the condition that I would obviously decorate it all up and so on. And yeah, within 6 months we had 700 members. I was making £80,000 a month with £2,000 a month overheads. I was a millionaire by the time I was 20 had done. You know, it was just incredible. It was hard then. So I was teaching all the classes, probably 30 classes a week, doing the cleaning, answering the phone, signing people up, doing everything, you know. And I didn't have staff because I had to train the staff and I had to learn how to do all of that. It's easier for my franchises now because they can just pick up and run with it. Because I've been there, made all the mistakes for them. I got all the systems for them, and I franchised it now. And many you see behind me, like MF Dance and Pilates, and we got yoga and first aid and all sorts. I teach people how to franchise their business. That's why. What I do, you pretty much franchise any business in the world. It's the best model, I believe, in the world if you want to scale, especially now globally. But yeah, that's the first chapter, I guess, is that I got this big school, and then I did 5 schools of my own. So I thought, can I do it again? Can I do it again? I did every town in North Devon, and then the nearest town was about 40 miles away, where I live now, funny enough. I didn't think in my mentality I'd get an instructor to travel from North Devon to Mid Devon. And so that's when I entered the franchising world there. So yeah, so it's been that's the first chapter, I guess.
Yeah, you talk about chapters. I mean, this would make a flipping good film, right? Just as you're talking,
fairy tale.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone would believe it. That's the problem.
Many people will know you from your friendship with Michael Jackson, which is just so fascinating. Take us back to that first contact. How did it all come about?
So I had a parent of a student in the class who was a journalist. Basically, he supplied stories to national newspapers, and I was a bit naive back then. I didn't really know about news agencies. I thought it was the local paper, if I'm honest. And he said, "Can I interview you about being bullied at school?" He did some calculations. He knew I was making a lot of money. You know, he could tell that. I had all the toys too. I had the cars to go with it, and that. You know, it was quite obvious I was making that. You can't hide that, nor should you, because you should inspire people. In England, we try and hide wealth. It's wrong. You should try and show people. So they ask the question, how can I do that? That should be how it works. So you try and park your Ferrari around the corner so none of the parents will see and stuff. When in fact, the reason they're bringing the parents to you is so that they can end up being successful. So, you know, if people say, oh, you got a Ferrari, you're doing well, you make a lot of money. You say, yeah, that's right. That's why you bring your kids to us so that we can teach your kids to be confident when they're older to hit their goals. But the journalist was really interested in my story. He was quizzing me about it. They did a photo shoot after of me in the school, a martial arts school, and in my car. And then I said to him as he left, do you think it'll make the local paper? And he said, I'm sure it will. Well, 2 days later, it was the front page of every tabloid in England. Bully boy becomes millionaire. And it was everywhere, not just tabloids, on the broadsheets as well. And then on the back of that, you get invited on all the TV shows. So I did Lorraine Kelly, Trisha, Kilroy, Esther Ransom, all the big shows back then. And then it came to the attention of the famous Uri Geller, who was living in the UK at the time. And in England, he's more famous for bending spoons, I suppose, than anything else. But around the world, he's got all these companies and shows and formats he owns. He's published over 48 books, very successful man. And I had an answer phone message from one of his security team that he wanted to meet me. So I went to meet him at his mansion. It's next to George Clooney's house in Sonning-on-Thames. £20 million mansion. It's like a replica of the White House. Incredible place. Super motivating day for me. And I met with him. I got on really well with him. And he wanted to meet me because he wanted to make a video series, VHS back then, on I would do anti-bullying skills and he'd do the power of mind to kids to stay focused and positive. And we'd give it out to all the schools for free. But our friendship went further. He ended up being godfather to my eldest daughter, Madison. And I knew he had a lot of famous friends. So I would hear calls come in, and especially from royalty and people like that. But I never heard Michael Jackson's link to him at all. He just called me at 3 o'clock in the morning one time. And he said, which is not unusual for successful people. They're up all night, especially like Uri, where he's famous internationally. So he has to stay awake for meetings and interviews and stuff like that. So I answered the landline at 3 o'clock in the morning. He said, you've got to come to my house now. If you don't come to my house now, you regret it for the rest of your life. I said, you've got to tell me why. So I can't tell you why. You just got to come to the house now. I said, how am I going to explain this to my missus? where the hell I'm going at 3 o'clock in the morning. He said, don't worry about it. Stop moaning. I'll see you in 3 hours' time. Love you. Bye. Put the phone down. So I trust Yuri. He's still my best friend to this day. You know, he's like 74 years old. And I drove to his house and let your gates open, drive down. There's nothing real suspicious. There's some SUVs outside, big black SUVs outside, cars, and walk in the living room. And then this frail man walks up to me and he bows to me like you do in the martial arts. So, hi, I'm Michael Jackson, Master Fiddes. Nice to meet you. And he shook my hand. I think, I know you're Michael Jackson. What the heck are you doing here? What's going on? You know? And he just finished some concerts in the UK. And it turned out he was staying at Uri Geller's. And we just got on really well. Me and him did. You think about it, he had a kind of a troubled childhood, painful childhood. I got bullied at school. I hated school. I mean, it was the worst time of my life. Couldn't wait to get out. And he had a troubled relationship with his dad. I had a troubled relationship with my dad. I've not spoken to my father now for 16 or so years. We just don't get on. We just come from different eras, you know, different ways of looking at things. I used to go on very well with my grandfather. He was more adaptive to the way I work and what I do with things. I think people like my dad just want a quiet life. They didn't want their son to be all over the media and linked to the most famous man on earth. And yeah, me and Mike just became good friends, and I'd go visit him in America and he'd come over here. Then over time, I ended up taking over his security at times and events. We didn't do many public events, like from 1999 to 2004. The ones we did, you'd know about, like Exeter. We went to, you mentioned the Houses of Parliament when we spoke off there. We went to House of Parliament there. We go to Harrods and Hamleys. We go to Mohammed Al-Fayed's house a lot for dinner. The owner of Harrods at the time, the billionaire, and he would shut Harrods for us so we could shop because otherwise it was hectic. You know, we would go to events. I went to an event with him in Carnegie Hall for a charity campaign he raised about. He can't understand why all the kids were going into school shooting each other in America. It was for him, he just can't understand that. So he wanted to use his fame to try and influence that. So on Valentine's Day, because he felt that represented love, he organised this event in Manhattan at Carnegie Hall. So I had to explain to my wife that Valentine's Day is going to be spent with Michael Jackson this year, I'm afraid. It didn't go down to, that's my ex-wife, by the way, probably had something to do with it. And and we went out there, we supported his charity called Heal the Kids. So he wanted parents to recognise and at least eat together at the dinner table, you know, because he felt the world was going wrong. And we just got on, wow, we had so many similar interests. And also, when I met him, he was already a black belt. So Joe Jackson makes sure all of his children were trained in martial arts. So I took him to second degree black belt along with his friend Mark Lester at the same time. And we just became buddies, really. And I never took any money off him or anything like that. So did anything for free. I was always a big supporter for him. Would always help him out whenever I can, whenever he'd get stitched up by people like TV producers, for instance. Then I would give witness statements because I was in the initial meeting. The most famous one, obviously, is the Martin Bashir documentary, which is a bit controversial because of what the whole fuss about Princess Diana and him. But I was in that meeting when he pitched Michael, and it wasn't the documentary that came out at the end. It was all about the music and dance and killing the myths, not the one that you saw that it led to false allegations of child molestation, which Michael got found not guilty of on 14 counts in the hardest court in the world. But we tried to get that program stopped. We tried to get an injunction against it, but Michael signs. He's so used to signing things. You know, I think he was at Neverland. So from what I could recall from one of his staff, that he might have signed a waiver to his rights, and he had an understanding of Martin that he was going to get a proof copy. Yeah. But towards the end of it, at the end of the filming, when it was finished, Michael was in Miami waiting for Martin Bashir to turn up. Martin Bashir never turned up, and we could never get hold of him again. Yeah. And that turned out a disastrous documentary, which unfortunately led to the allegations, which probably led to his early demise. You know, so it was an interesting time, really. So that was the next chapter. So I think it worked so well because we never had an exchange of money. Yeah, and I didn't need his money. I think Uri Geller knew I was making so much money. I didn't really need anything from Michael Jackson. There was no benefit to me. Yeah, other than the friendship. And there's somebody he could put in Michael's life that could do some good to him. You know, because he was into martial arts. He's Bruce Lee fanatic. If you watch a movie with Michael, he could say every word before Bruce Lee would say it.
Yeah.
And he keep every city we go, he keep buying Enter the Dragon on all the movies all the time. And he wanted to meet Shannon Lee and Linda Lee. And that was his obsession. He knew I could make it happen, but he didn't turn up to the appointment.
Really?
But yeah, we had a lot in common. I mean, the guy's a normal bloke. It's just the trouble you got, David. Everyone's fascinated by Mike, but you don't get to be a mega billionaire, own half of Sony Music Publishing, and be the most famous man in the world if you're stupid. The guy was a media manipulator. And I know it's come back and backfired on him, and I appreciate that. But back then, especially in 2009 too, when he passed away, I think we only had MySpace. I don't think we had Facebook back then or nothing.
Yeah.
He was just getting to grips with email. So he couldn't respond to false allegations.
Yeah.
He was relying on media, journalists writing the truth about things. But positive news don't sell. Yeah. They don't mention the fact that he's the biggest donator to the charities in the world. Yeah. 750 million he's pumped out to good causes, you know, in the entertainment industry. He's one of the biggest donators there. They don't mention all that. Yeah. And it's real sad. But so in today's era, I mean, he could just jump on Clubhouse and kill a rumor, couldn't he? Or do an Instagram video post and kill it. But back then, he was relying on media. And to do a TV show, he did a live one with Oprah Winfrey. That went really well in '93. But whenever you do TV shows and they edit it, especially when it comes to the Jackson family, there's a value in people making it controversial. So they edit it to make it look like it's not. I've had it done to me in the Jacksons before, and we had to sue over it. And it's bizarre. I watched the program back and I couldn't even recognize like the bit we shot at the end was at the beginning of the program, and there was a voiceover, and our voices were turned down, so we're not even representing what was going on, and it's all dramatized, and there wasn't a real reflection of what's going on. It was really odd. And that program was never shown again, obviously, because we got an injunction against it. But that was the issue. Michael couldn't win. He wanted to get the truth out there, but it needed a broadcaster to give him like a live platform, really, than an edited one. Yeah,
for sure. You mentioned the chaos that came with Michael Jackson wherever he went. You know, it was absolute pandemonium. Anyone's only got to type your name in onto YouTube and they'll see some of that footage and what you've been involved with. I'm really fascinated. Yeah. Obviously, your role was there to protect Michael. How close did you come to having to use any of your martial arts to actually defend him?
I put the old elbow into a paparazzi every now and then. But Michael would never want us to treat anyone like that. He would always say, you see, the thing with him, the people that mob him love him. And they may hurt him, but it's unintentional. So, but he was I'd never had any formal bodyguarding training ever. But the man who taught me everything I knew how to protect him was Michael, because there's no better teacher. He's been famous since he's 5 years old. So he told me how to duck and dive and what to do with him, when to call events off. We'd be linked up with microphones sometimes and stuff like that. But the media were tough on him. I mean, they were hard. They were always trying to get the camera in his face. Back then we had these big lenses too, and there's always a fear of him getting hurt that way. Only one time I kind of lost it, I think, where we were at Paddington Station trying to catch a train. I know it sounds mad, but Michael is a normal human being at the end of the day. We had to catch a train. He got recognised. The train was delayed a little bit, and everybody who was on all their platforms came off their trains because they heard Michael Jackson was there and wanted to see if it's true or not. Media were there on their motorbikes within no time at all. The police aren't really allowed to help you out unless you're royalty. So they normally send like a panda car with 2 officers, which is no hope. In America, you get like a gun armed force coming to help you, you know. And he fainted. He had so many people around him. He collapsed in front of us onto the floor. And then I literally had to pick him up and then just run with him to the train. But the paparazzi in his face. So I did like a sneaky elbow then. But no, we didn't have to. I think with martial arts training and stuff like that, it's about how to avoid the situations more so than the conflict. And they just loved him. The media want to get their shot. They want to try and get a funny angle of his face or make out he's had the latest surgery or his chin's going to fall off or some ridiculous thing. And most of the time, Michael was behind all that anyway. He just plaster makeup on or put tape all over his face to cause the frenzy. but no, we were just very clever with what we did, and we'd only go out at night time under darkness. Shops will get shut for Michael, and when we do public events, yeah, we'd have to prepare for it, and that was tough. I mean, there's some footage on YouTube, I think, still of. He said to me in the middle of the night about. He called me about. We had adjoining rooms in the hotel suite to keep him company, and he just buzzed my room and he said, "I want to go to HMV." And I said, "Well, do you want me to ask him to shut it down, do it late at night?" He said, "I just want to go." And there's footage there. We tried, me, Michael, and one other bodyguard, and we turn up. We go through the front door like anyone else would, and literally the first thing he wants to do is check that his records are being distributed right. So he goes to the Michael Jackson section. So you got people flicking through Michael Jackson's records, and he's like, "Hi, how are you?" And they can't believe their eyes, you know. But it's interesting what happens is the cashier people leave the till and dart for his autograph. The security guards leave their positions and dart for his autograph. And then the public realise. Then what happens then is Oxford Street starts listening, hearing, Michael Jackson's just gone in there. And then the police turn up. They shut Oxford Street down because all these masses of people turn up. And then in the end, a police officer comes over to us and says, "Well, I'm really sorry to say this, but we got to turn off all the escalators in HMV. It's like 5 or 6 floors high back then. I don't know what it's like now. And can we ask you to go and sit out in the fire exit passageway until we sort the situation out?" We've only been shopping like 5 minutes. Yeah. So there's a picture somewhere of me, Michael, and some bodyguard in this fire exit, and he's looking sad, you know, because he's got all he's managed to get is like 3 or 4 copies of his own records and all the stuff on his list. And there's no prospect of us being let back out there again. Sat in the back of this fire exit trying to work out how the hell to get him out. Yeah, because Oxford Street was just shut off. And we tried all kinds of diversion techniques and stuff, and we got there in the end. But yeah, it was madness wherever we went. I've worked with many famous people that talk about MJ with me, Michael with me, but I've never seen anybody the public react to anyone like I've seen with Michael Jackson. There's even on stage. See, my wife's a pop star. She's the #1 pop star in South Africa, and there's no comparison to when I see her perform, or I see other friends who are pop stars perform, to when you see Michael when he turns up on stage. They just go crazy, and they go so crazy you can't even hear the music sometimes. Yeah, or hear him singing. Yeah, you know. And it was I used to like the rehearsals because that got me the chance to see my mate do his thing without the audience screaming. And he used to put quite a lot of effort into his rehearsals as well. Not full effort. That was kind of interesting watching the rehearsals with the empty stadium at Madison Square Gardens and Munich and stuff like that. That was cool. Yeah. It's been a strange life.
It's so fascinating listening to you talk about this, Matt. One of the things that I think people find really interesting is you mentioned that Michael, you said it in passing a few moments ago, Michael would, maybe do something with makeup to make it look like his chin's falling off. How much did Michael actually sort of play that PR and manage his brand? How in control was he of all of that stuff?
He was the master manipulator of media. I mean, he could. He's better than any PR agency I've ever known. I mean, the guy was a walking PR machine. So if we got to a city, he would want to make, not all the time, but most of the time, he would want to make front pages. They would come up with all these creative ideas on how we can do that. I remember, so sometimes he would fool me as well. I mean, amount of times I called Michael up in America to see if he's okay. And then he's like, "You fall into my trap, Matt. You fall into my trap." It all goes back to the oxygen chamber. Do you remember that story?
Yeah, vaguely, yeah.
He's sleeping in an oxygen chamber. And he was very good friends with Elizabeth Taylor, the actress. And she was always on the front of the National Enquirer. And Michael always wanted to be on the front of the National Enquirer. And he used to say to his PR people, how can it happen? They didn't know how to make it happen, really. Because you need to have a bit of a kind of bizarre story to get on the front of the National Enquirer. Now it's not seen as prestigious as what it was back then, by the way. It's totally turned. And it's like Hollywood Mecca if you're on the front of that thing. So he got burnt in an accident for a Pepsi commercial, and he donated all his compensation to a burn center, and he went there. And he just had this idea come in his head. It's an oxygen chamber which helps you heal your skin from burns. And he said to his manager, Frank DeLair, back then, he said, I'm going to lay down on that for a few seconds. Take a picture of me, and I'll tell you about it later. And he laid down on it. Frank took the picture, and then he came out. He said, I want you to send that to National Enquirer and tell them I sleep in it every night. And then bang, he was front page of National Enquirer. Michael Jackson sleeping in the oxygen chamber. And then it went on from there, from the Bubbles the Monkey, you know, to it just went on and on. But he called me out one morning. It was one Sunday morning when we had the big newspaper, the News of the World. Remember that one?
Yeah.
And they called me up for comment on Michael. He was spotted out shopping in Los Angeles, and he had like sticky, you know, the yellow plaster tape, the tape you get that you write notes on, the little memory
Post-it notes.
pad.
The post-it notes.
Post-it notes, that's the word. Yeah, he had them all over his face, and I said to the reporter, I'm not going to ring him because I've not seen it. I did speak to him recently. I can't imagine there's anything wrong with him. And I went to check out the newspaper, and I saw the newspapers at the front of the local garage, and every single paper had a picture of Michael on at a bookstore with all this tape, sticky notepads all over his face completely, and he had sunglasses on, and it looked totally bizarre. I was worried for him. And then my friends in Australia would say the same thing. It's all over the front of the pages there, all around the world. So I knew exactly where he was staying at the time, what hotel he was in, and he would answer the phone. So I called him up, and he answered. I said, Michael, you okay? He said, yeah, I'm fine. What's up? So, well, there's pictures of you, and you've got tape, these notepad things all over your face. What's going on? He goes, they've fallen into my trap. He said, Matt, I promised the kids I would take them shopping to a bookstore, and I wanted to keep my promise, but he cut himself shaving on his chin. And he said, I knew the paparazzi would follow me because they're outside my hotel. And they'll say my chin's falling off. So because he was going to put a plaster over his cut, you know. So he said, what the hell? So he just covered his face in all these plasters and gave them what they want. And it went worldwide news. And after that, I thought, I'm never going to ring him again.
Yeah.
After that, you know. So when it started reporting that he was in a coma, because we heard about that. His inner circle did a long time before the general public and the media did. So when we heard about that, these rumors, because the news are very careful to go with stuff relating to Michael, because they knew that most of the stuff was probably his PR machine behind it. So when we started hearing rumors, Uri Geller called me first, and he said, I got CNN on one line, I got Fox News on another, and Larry King on the other one, and they're all saying that Michael's seriously ill, been rushed to UCLA hospital in LA, and he's in a coma. But he was due in England a week later. I only spoke to him a couple of days before on the phone, and he didn't sound great, I must admit. But I wasn't concerned that he was going to die or anything. I just thought he was going to call the shows off, 50 shows, and then I said to Yuri, I'm not going to give him a ring, and because they had a bit of a rift, they had a bit of a falling out at that time. I'm not going to give him a call. I'm sure he's fine. It's too much of a coincidence. The show's next week. It's a PR stunt to get ready for him for when he enters the UK. We're all ready to go. And then about an hour later, Yuri calls me again. I said, Matt, they're still ringing me. They're now saying that he's had a heart attack and he's in critical condition at the hospital. And I was thinking, dear me, man, am I going to make this call? So I'm going to look like a right fool if Michael answers the phone and everything's okay. You know, he's going to think I've lost it. So I must have called him about 50 times. Then what happened is I looked at my mobile phone, and Mark Lester was calling me. And Mark is closer to Michael than all of us. He's godfather of Michael's children, and he's godfather to one of mine as well. It's all like we keep it tight, us friends. And as soon as I glanced at the screen and Mark was calling, I knew something was seriously wrong. And I answered the phone, and Mark said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm at home." He said, "Sit down, Matt." He said, "Michael's died." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I've just spoken to his nanny." So he called the nanny who looks after the kids, and she was just crying and crying. That's all the information we had, that Michael's died, and it'll be on the news. And as I was on the phone to me, it appeared on the news, Michael Jackson rushed to hospital in a coma, when in fact he'd already died. But they wanted to wait for the official coroner's report because they wanted to not be sued by Michael, obviously, if they got it wrong. It's such a strong allegation. And so several hours later, the news went from coma to he died. By that time, I had his family ringing me and all sorts, saying, "What's happened to our brother? There's helicopters going over our house. Are you with my brother?" You know, and I knew he'd gone. I just said, I don't know anything. Just ring your mum, ring Mrs. Jackson, Michael's mum, Catherine Jackson. Yeah, and then it turns Michael Jackson had died. Yeah, and then that was it. Then it was just madness. You can't defame a dead person. Yeah. So we had every story under the sun running for weeks on end. It was just nuts.
Yeah. Just really quickly putting it back a little bit whilst Michael was still alive. One of the things that I've heard you speak about a few times before, and just again find it really fascinating, is these famous shopping trips that Michael had. Give us an insight into what was actually going on with some of those.
Well, the stuff you see on TV, if I'm honest with you, it was for TV. I mean, he didn't really want to spend £2-3 million on that stuff. He sent it back. He sent it back the next day, or I mean, or did a deal with the shopkeeper to have them featured on TV to make out he was buying it. But there is times, obviously, that we've been to Harrods and I've seen him blow $3 million in an hour and a half on stuff he's never probably used. I think that the best story I've got with him, he liked art. He liked drawing, painting. That was like his passion. He had like a bunker, like an airplane bunker, which he permanently had rented out, where he would go and with an art coach, and he would draw and he would paint and so on. And that was his way to escape the madness. And we're in London, and he knew about this very famous art bookshop that specialised in art and different ways to portray art. And he didn't want to shut down. So he turned up. There was no one in it, really. And actually, somebody came in the shop and didn't notice he was there. Us bodyguards keep a low profile, but we had to catch a plane. And Michael was taking ages. He picked like 5 books, and he was taking his time going. And I went up to him and said, "Mike, we got to go soon. We have to go. We're going to miss our plane." And he just went, He said, "Can you tell her I take them all?" And I said, "What do you mean, all these 5?" He goes, "No, one more." I said, "I'm not going to go and tell her you want to buy every book in the shop. There's no way. She's not going to think I'm crazy, man. Where are you going to put it? So we just send it to Neverland." And in the end, he went up to me. He said, I have to go, apparently. So I'll take everything you got. And he bought the whole shop. He bought every book in the shop, got sent to Neverland. And the funny thing is, about 2 days later, she tracked me down through my martial arts school. She typed in Matt Fiddes martial arts in Google and tracked me down via my website. And she was like frantic. "I don't know if you remember me, but you were at my shop the other day with Michael Jackson. Well, I hope it is Michael Jackson. I'm not a lookalike. But they've gone away with all my books and he's forgot to pay." And so I had to call up his office, and they said, I reassured her, "Don't worry, it was Michael." And they set her the bill for her. She got bankrupted, bless her. But yeah, she had the best business day in her life.
Yeah.
Particular day.
Amazing. I know Michael was key in you exploring the franchising business model. What are the advantages and disadvantages to having a franchise?
It's there's no disadvantages I could think of, because I would never change my career in any way. So I had those 5 schools, and I had that mindset. I couldn't expand to another one. And it was Michael who taught me the business element. He said to me, "Sure you can. It's called franchising." And he wrote it down on like a napkin to me and how I do it. But I said to him, "No one's ever done that in martial arts before." And he said, "That's exactly where you got to do it." And then he kind of wrote out how it works, how you take a commission from their success, you package everything together, and it's the most scalable way to grow your business. So you can take any business and you can franchise it out. I've seen it done from bird tables to also some of my clients. They range from like property to swimming schools to golf courses. I mean, accountancy, lawyers. You can franchise any concept. It's very scalable, and it's a proven model. So the franchisor should have done all the mistakes. So what you would achieve trying to work it all out for yourself may take you 20 years. You may not ever make it. Whereas with my franchisor come on board, as long as they follow my advice and they're coachable, mentorable, they listen to me as a mentor, then normally within 3 to 5 years, we can get them financially independent, which means they don't have to worry about money anymore. And that they got a business. It's basically a business in a box. Yeah. You follow this, it's the business, you follow it, off you go, script by script, and you'll have the same success. And it's my job to get the brand out there, to use the media to my advantage, everything that Mike taught me and stuff like that, and use my inner circle, my contacts to to look after my clients and my franchise networks, especially now after the pandemic. I want them all to have the best financial education they can. You know, I teach something called the 6 balloons, where I want to teach them how to make sure they've got to use their pension the right way, or get one if they haven't got one. Invest in stocks and shares, mutual funds, buy-to-let property. There's many ways you can do that, which I'm heavily invested in. Uri Geller pushed me to start buying houses when I was 18 years old. I'm one of the biggest property investors in the Southwest now, biggest portfolio for buy-to-let in the Southwest of England, and have a company and have a business. If you've got all of those 6 things in place, when things like pandemics come around, the world crisis, which I believe they will do again, because the media love them, and people made billions with this pandemic, then you're going to be okay. Property prices go down, stocks and shares tend to go up. Stocks and shares go down, property go up. If you buy property to cash flow, you're always going to be okay, as long as you buy the right ones. And if you've got a company, you've got tax advantages, and it's got the asset protection. You've got business, you've got some tax advantages too. So I try to teach this to all of them now. So the pandemic's changed all that. Before that, it was all my inner circle, like hanging out with Mohammed Al-Fayed and all these billionaires that I was privileged to having dinner with when I was 18 years old, thinking, how the hell did I get here? By being friends with Mike, gave me access to these people still to this today. You know, I hang out with a lot with like people like Rob Moore, who's a great guy. He gives up a lot of his time for free to help people, actually, and he's a wonderful guy. And I speak to Rob most days, and network, and you will become the people you surround yourself with. I mean, that's the thing. So if you're part of a network, then you've got an advantage over everyone, and the power of a brand is massive. So we opened up yesterday, first day face-to-face classes, but we're still bigger, even though we've been online not recruiting since November the 1st. We're still bigger than what we were before the lockdown, because we pumped so many members in after lockdown 1 to cover this. So we envisioned this would happen. So my guys, all my franchise networks, all our competitors are gone, and we're selling franchises like crazy at the minute, because people who've lost their businesses or haven't pivoted to online or haven't worked it out, haven't got the brand power, we've got the money behind us. They're just jumping on board with us, which is great. We took on someone this morning actually, who's opened up like 40 locations for us, and in lockdown we were planning, rather than worrying about what we can't control, we're planning what we can control when we come out. So we've just launched in Ireland, Northern and Southern Ireland. We've got a business joint venture out there, and so yeah, it's a land of opportunity at the minute. Yeah. But franchising, to me, I love it. It's what I know. You know, Dave, it's my thing. I've been doing it for 24 years now. I can turn it to anything. And we're in a global economy now. So with things like Clubhouse, which has really changed things, you can with this Zoom culture, this virtual culture. Like I got staff working for me now, VAs I've never met, who are amazing. They are amazing, you know. And you pay them the fraction of the cost of what you would do if they're in the UK. Yeah. And they work harder than ever. Yeah. And it's just changed now. So I can see the future of my career of helping people franchise around the world, their business they're currently in, and also expanding my networks around the world on a global scale. We had a Zoom last night with someone in America. So it's I know we've got to recognise the fact that a lot of people have died of this thing, and that's been tough. And it's been tough for me too. I'm asthmatic, and I've got it's an hereditary condition. It's like a heart condition. It's like a regular heartbeat, heart arrhythmia. It's not serious, but it's serious if you get COVID. So for the last year, I've had to be indoors, you know, until I got my injection. And I think it's a time of opportunity now. If you want to make it in business and be an entrepreneur, now's the right time. It's got to seek out the right mentor. Yeah. Make sure they got social proof. There's a lot of fake coaches out there and consultants. You've probably seen some yourself popping out there. Go to Google, check them out. Go to YouTube, check out their social proof. Ask for their accounts if you want to. I think you should do that. If you're going to take on a consultant or a mentor, it's only fair. You can ask them, you know, how much do you earn? I mean, it's mad for me when people take financial advice from a 21-year-old who lives with their parents in a bank about where they should put their money to retire. Yeah. And they're broke. Yeah. Financial advisors that are broke are out there, by hundreds of thousands of them. And you should be taking advice from people who've been out there, made millions, and done it through the school of hard knocks. Yeah. Not necessarily from people in the high street bank. You know, if you ask to see someone about mutual fund, you'll get someone who comes out who's 21, who's living in a spare room in a bedroom or renting a property. I had someone recently, a franchisee, asked me about property buy to let. I do a lot of joint ventures with them now. I'm going to help them out with that on the property. So that's another system in itself. And rather than trying to figure it out themselves, I'll just partner with them, do it with them. And they said to me, they were taking advice from this mortgage broker about buy to let property. I said, that's great. But the first question you need to ask him, does he own property? He came back to me now later. He said, Matt, no, he doesn't. He rents. And he said, well, he can't advise you. You know, you can't take advice from someone who earns less money than you. He can't give you advice on what to invest on property when he hasn't even done it himself. Yeah. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, he might be able to tell you what a good mortgage rate is, but he won't know about no money down or HMOs or, you know, all the different techniques and stuff.
You touched on this earlier on, didn't you, when you said about the school system? You know, you've got teachers that are teaching business studies that have never owned a business before. And, you know, how are we going to be teaching entrepreneurs of the future when people haven't done it themselves, you know?
It's something I'm really passionate about. Rob Moore's got his Young Entrepreneurs Foundation. I was a speaker on his summit he did for Young Entrepreneurs. It was quite intimidating, actually, because I had a billionaire before me, Navid, his name was. Then it was myself. Then it was Grant Cardone after me. I was like, you know, it's like being at a dinner table again when I was 18. How the hell did I get here? But it's an interesting one because at school, they don't teach you anything about money. And it's quite interesting. Your parents push you to go to school to work hard, get good grades, go to college, get a good job, earn a lot of money. And by the way, when you do earn a lot of money, you get slammed for it. That's the strange thing. I don't understand that. Yeah. It seems to be not right to earn a lot, even though you're encouraged to do good grades to get a lot of money. Buy a house, pay your house off, which I believe is the worst thing to do ever, to pay your residential house. Why would you do that when you can invest in that money into buy-to-lets and have that pay your house off? You know, it doesn't make, if you've got a choice to rent a property and build a buy-to-let portfolio, you're going to go to use the money on buy-to-let. That brings you an income. A house is a liability, not an asset to you. It's got bills coming out. You can't live in it forever. You don't really own it. You still got to pay council tax and electricity, any money coming in there. And so you get told to pay your house off, retire at 67 it is now for men, isn't it? And then draw your pension. And then maybe you got like 10 or 15 years after your life with hip replacements and knees out of joint and everything else to have a few holidays before you kick the bucket. Yeah. I mean, that's not the way it should be. And I don't understand why this system is not changed. So there should be an element. I know everyone doesn't want to be an entrepreneur and go through, because there is a downside to it. We don't talk about the failures, do we, that often? In Clubhouse, I like to talk about the things that I've not been successful in, because you don't get to hear about them. Yeah. But entrepreneurs learn from their failures. That's how they go on to be successful. So the school of hard knocks is there in a big way. And I think people need to embrace that. But why they don't teach about money at school? Just the basics, you know, like, why is it called a mortgage? A mortgage is called a mortgage because it's linked to the word mortality, which means it sees you through until you're dead. Yeah. So you pay in it and then sees you through until you die. That's why the word is called that. And why they don't teach like what an asset liability is, what a need, what a want is, why it's bad to save money, why you should always have money flowing, invested. You know, what's the difference between spending and investing as well? People don't understand that aspect. Why you don't need qualifications to be a millionaire, you know, or be financially, you know, the millionaire thing is not even a point of it, really. You don't have to be a millionaire to be financially independent. It's not that hard to be a millionaire. It's pretty simple. You just got to know the system to do it, you know, and you use it by modeling other people's success, using other people's money like banks and lenders and so on, and looking for the right opportunities and looking at what other people have done, or joint venturing. Like people who joint venture with me, they got a leg up on the ladder straight away, haven't they? Yeah. And if you, so it's not that difficult. And 20 years ago, £1 million would have been like 10 million today. You know, you got 10 million today, that should bring you in 500,000 a year at least, and you're done. And people think 10 million, wow, that's a crazy amount. Well, you don't really have 10 million. You probably have 2 or 3 million in equity, but you've got leveraged out with loans. You've got 10 million worth of assets, which if house prices go up by 10%, you're going to make yourself £1 million tax free. And the rental income, as long as you buy it right, you're going to bring yourself in £500,000 a year easy, you know, just on. So it's not like the financial bit's so easy once you know what you're doing. But you just got to self-study that, read the right books, get on the right podcasts like this one. and get in the right clubhouse rooms. So, search people out before you take education from them. So I've heard some horror stories, people paying crazy money for people who've had no success. I see PR agents hanging around in clubhouse claiming they've represented some of my best friends, and they've never heard of them.
Yeah.
Or some friends who've died and they've never heard of them, and they're selling online courses on how to promote your business and be a PR. And they're sitting on all stages, and when it comes to them answering a question, they disappear, or they say, I can't talk because of client confidentiality. Complete frauds and fakes. And there's a lot of that going on, unfortunately, in the minute with these online courses and things. But look out the people who've been around 20 years and done hard graft, and have been there and done it and got social media. Don't be scared to ask for financial statements. If you're going to pay someone a lot of money, they should show their proof to you that they've been there and made it. That's the way I believe.
Having enjoyed so much success, how do you keep yourself motivated?
How it is for me is that I got 6 children. I've worked out what's causing it now, so I'm going to slow it down. But I have 6 kids. I've got 4 daughters and 2 sons. And for me, I just feel, I don't scare people out there, but I think that the world they're going to experience when they're older is going to be hard. Really hard. And for when they have children, for my grandchildren, is going to be extremely hard. I mean, we've gone through probably the most shocking year of our lifetime. More people have died in this pandemic than World War II. And I used to hear my grandfather tell me about World War II because he served in it. And I used to get bored of the stories, if I'm honest. Now I really appreciate what he went through, because all we were asked to do for a year, stay at home. He had to go to Germany away from my nan and communicate by letters that would arrive 3 months later. She didn't know if he's dead or alive. And she had bombs coming down, And with me is what motivates me to keep working. First of all, if you change enough people's lives, the reward for that is going to be financial. So if you focus on money, you won't get anywhere. So if you focus on changing lives, so we change our students' life one life at a time, and the reward for that is they pay us tuition. So if I change my franchises' lives by building them a big business with them, part of a big brand, then they'll become financially independent. They're happy to pay me. It's fair exchange, basically, isn't it? And same with my clients. If I teach them to franchise their business in different sectors, and to go from one estate agent to maybe 1,000, then I get paid from that. So that bit's fairly simple to work out. But what motivates me is I love changing people's lives for a start, but I want to leave generational wealth that will take care of my family when I'm gone and take care of my great-great-grandchildren. And you can do that. Properties will outlive, 4 or 5 generations. Without a doubt, they've been, the records for properties, you see how some of them are sort of like 1,000 years old. There's some houses I own that are a couple of 100 years old. And I think, for me, property is where it's at. And so I use my businesses to generate that mass cash flow. And then money I have goes straight into property all the time, always buying. And that's the key. So for me, what motivates me is to take care of my kids, because there's only so many toys you can have with Bentleys and Bentleys in the background, Ferraris and helicopters. My wife won't let me get one of them anyway. Houses you can have, holidays you can take. So it's not as if I'm going to stop working. I'm 41 years old. I just love what I do. I just love changing people's lives. It's no better feeling you get when you see a kid get their black belt and the parents are crying, or you see someone make their first million and they realize they never have to worry about money ever again because it's bringing them a passive income in, and they never have to. It's going to be coming in forever, no matter what happens in the world. And when you get that phone call saying you've got me through the pandemic, Matt, thank you so much, And I've been getting a lot of that lately from my franchises, so I really went the extra mile for them all to help them get through all that. We didn't lose one franchisee through the pandemic at all. It's a big, for me, it's the greatest reward in the world. So money is it's like a point scoring reward system. I've always looked at it that way, is that you judge your service or your product by how many points you get, and points really is what money is. So it's like a runner would measure their success by a stopwatch on how they're doing, a bodybuilder by the mirror or a tape measure. We can only measure our success by money. That's the only reason. So the better value, the better service we give, or better product we give, our reward will be money. So for me, to build generational wealth is a big motivational tool, especially after I'm more motivated now than what I was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
It woke me up to realize, wow, I didn't realize the government could shut you down. I had no idea they could do that. Yeah. I didn't have a clue they could get you stay at home, In other countries of the world, I got friends like in the Philippines, you stay at home, you go out, you get shot. We had it easy in England compared to what they had. Yeah, it's interesting. So I think for me, I got a responsibility through the contact books I've got, for the history and the lessons I've learned as a mentor to help businesses get out there now and protect themselves for future stuff like we've gone through.
Yeah. You've mentioned your network. I mean, you're friends with some of the most successful, well-known people in the world today. You've got a whole portfolio full of successful franchise owners that work with you on a daily basis as well. I'm interested to know, Matt, what are the most common traits that you recognize in the most successful people that you know?
They're very coachable. They listen and they just get on with it and take action. They don't question me. So the guy this morning I took on, I met him on Clubhouse, and he wants to buy a franchise off me. We've done the deals, done. All I wanted to know from him, are you going to listen to me? Are you going to read my manuals, my scripts, take my advice, not question me, get on with it? Don't give me this, this won't work in my area, or humans are different in this part of the country, because this is the kind of stuff you hear from people. But when we expanded to Germany, the Germans like, this will never work here. German people are different. And then we did 118 schools in one night. We saw 118 franchises. Australia were the same. This won't work in Australia, and it works fine. So they have to be coachable. They need to be mentored the right way. They need achievable goals so they can feel like they got progress. And they need to surround themselves with great people, just like I did. Yeah. If I didn't surround myself with those great people, and it happened by accident with me, really, didn't it? Then I would probably just be a personal trainer with a few martial arts schools going on. That would be about it, I would imagine. But I had people with me who were raising to a higher standard than me. When we got around a dinner table with my mentors, they were talking about how to make their next billion and ideas. They weren't gossiping about friends or talking about things. They were talking about what can we do, and also how can we change the world? Yeah. How can we stop this happening? How can we cure AIDS? How can we try and raise money? How can we open a new charity? They got a whole different priority this. You hang around people like that, you're going to pick up their character traits. Yeah. And like my media education, clearly that came from Mike, and my other friends too, who are in like Yuri Geller. Yuri pushed me to do the property thing and taught me that system, and then you study for it. But yeah, anyone could achieve what they want to achieve. You just got to have the right mindset. Yeah. And I think don't take advice. I'll tell you one thing you got to learn. The people got to take this the right way. Don't take advice off your family and friends who are close to you. So if you've got friends who are in higher net worth than you, then yeah, it's okay. I always say a thing too, that don't take advice from people who are less than you. It normally works. But with family, love your family, love your parents especially, your grandparents, but don't take advice off them. Because their era was different. It was like your grandparents get a trade. That's right advice to them, pay off your house. Well, they had bombs coming down and stuff. So they're quite happy to have their little box of a house for the rest of their life and die in it one day. I mean, that's fine for them. For me, I don't want to stay in the same house for all my life. I couldn't think of anything worse. So love your family, but don't take advice off them, because they're trying to tell you what's best. It's like what Simon Cowell says, when someone does a performance in front of him, he said, "Who told you you were great?" And they said, "My mum and dad." They were lying to you. That's what he says. Yeah. They're not really lying to you, but they don't know any different. They're not going to tell you the truth because they don't know it themselves. Yeah. If they knew it, they'd be multi-millionaires and independent too. Yeah. So you got to recognise who you take advice from, really. That's really important. Yeah.
Matt, I have flipping loved this conversation. It's gone so fast. Really thankful for your time, mate. Do you have any closing thoughts? And also, how can people keep in touch with you going forward?
Yeah, I'm quite accessible. I do communicate with people rather than have a virtual assistant do it. I like contact with the public, especially after being locked down for a year. So yeah, Instagram @official Matt Fiddes, Facebook page @official Matt Fiddes, Clubhouse @Matt Fiddes. I mean, if you just stick my name in Google, don't believe all the media stories you read. I'm probably behind most of them anyway. But you'll see all my social media channels, but Instagram is probably the easiest way to get hold of me, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we've got links to all of your social media accounts in the description below, as well as your website. Matt, thanks again for your time. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.